But this is the holy grail of Nike spikes. These are the first pair of Nike spikes ever worn in international competition. These are the first pair of Nike spikes ever worn on TV. And these were the first pair of Nike shoes ever featured in Nike's first promotional sports marketing poster. Handmade by Nike co-founder Bill Bowerman. And they are worth so much that they have to be kept in a safety deposit box at a bank for safekeeping.
You're looking at the field for the 5,000-meter run for the Soviet Union, number 86, Vladimir Zatonsky. He's 19 years old. He's a student at the Institute of Physical Fitness in Moscow. That's number 86. Next to him, number 38, Greg Virgin of the United States from Lebanon, Illinois. He's entering his...
I think if you ask 100 runners out there who was the first athlete in Nike shoes or who wore the first pair of Nike shoes in international competition, probably at least 99 or 100 would say Steve Prefontaine, the legendary runner from University of Oregon. Steve Prefontaine, in both the U.S. Olympic trials in front of his home fans in Eugene, Oregon in July, and in Munich at this 1972 Summer Games that year, was wearing Adidas because that was the brand that he'd been wearing for 3 or 4 years. And his coach, Coach Bill Bowerman, who was the co-founder of Nike and Blue Ribbon Sports, thought that that was probably a poor time for him to change shoe brands right before the biggest race of his career.
A 16-year-old boy from Illinois still leading with Andrei Apatov.
In 1972, I felt that I had a chance to make my first ever U.S. international team that would run against the Soviet Union. Once I made that U.S. team, I found out the next day that this meet was going to be on TV, on CBS Sports Spectacular on the weekend of July 28th and 29th. And I said, wow, this will be the first time I ever run on TV. Well, I got a phone call from Dick Pond, and he said, Craig, I hate to tell you this because I may lose you as a customer, but there's a gentleman from Blue Ribbon Sports that wants to talk with you. And his name is Jeff Hollister. And he is serving as the first ever sports promotional director. And he's also the retail director of their athletic store called the Athletic Department. And he said, what he would really like to do is talk with you. I have your permission to give him your phone number? And I said, sure. Well, Jeff Hollister called me the next day and said, we've been following your career for the last 18 months. We've seen you rise as one of the greatest distance runners in Illinois history and soon to be national. My wife is from Central Illinois. We've been following you with great interest. We'd like you to know that we're breaking away from Tiger and Blue Ribbon Sports is going to be making its own shoe brand. And we're going to call it Nike. And I said, well, what the heck's a Nike? And he said, well, it's the Greek mythology winged goddess of victory. And he said, it's a nice logo. And Coach Bowerman has said that he would like to make you a handmade pair of racing spikes for this race against the Soviet Union at the end of July. Coach Bowerman made only one pair of Nike spikes. And he made it for a skinny little 16-year-old boy back in Illinois who didn't know better, who when he got those shoes 2 weeks before his meet, tried them out for 2 or 3 practices and called up Jeff Hollister and said, please tell Coach Bowerman I said thank you and I believe I'm going to wear those shoes in that race. And he made it with the nylon upper. He made it with a shoe tab, with a typical heel counter back then, a leather suede tab that went down to the bottom. There was no foxing along the front, just a single double-side upper that he stitched together up front. And then behind it, or at the bottom of it, he used a 4-spike plate, plastic plate. But this is where Coach Bowerman's creative ideas started to come out. He drilled holes in that spike plate And those holes were to make the plate lighter and to make the spike plate more flexible. And then he gave me pin spikes, and he extended a rubber liner at the bottom from the front of the shoe all the way back to the heel. And I want to point out that this particular shoe, because he knew it was built for a distance runner, he put a bit of a heel bump there. So this was more padding in the heel than I'd ever had. This rubber bottom was done because he thought that I would be running on a synthetic polyurethane track. And when I got out to Sacramento, California, I was surprised to learn that it was a clay track, a track that was not unusual for California. It was clay that was raked and then rolled and then flooded with water and then baked. And what I found out was it wasn't the ideal surface for these shoes, but I was committed to do it. And the race started out, it was me that had to take the lead, and I wanted the Soviets, I invited them with my arm to take the lead after 2 or 3 laps, and nobody would. And they shoved me from behind, and that was a clear sign that you're on your own, bud. But what I didn't realize that these were experienced veteran junior runners. The guy in front got in front of me, slowed down, and the guy from behind me came up to my right side, and they boxed me in all the way through the final turn and into the straightaway. And in the straightaway, it was 2 abreast, and I tried to go outside, and they moved outside. I tried to go inside, and they put an elbow right into my solar plexus, and I stepped on the curb. And I literally finished right behind them in 3rd place. That next month, when I got home, I got a tube in the mail at my high school. I opened up that tube, and there was 4 posters in there. And what came was this poster behind me. And what I didn't realize was that these shoes and me were the first poster children for Nike. This company, I don't know how many, $200 billion is what Nike is worth today. But back in July of 1972, they were so broke that when they wanted to print their first promotional poster, 500 or 1,000 of them, they couldn't afford color. I think that was sentimental that I held on to this shoe through all these different residential moves. I held on to the poster, and as life sometimes has it, it takes you to get older to understand and appreciate history. And what I realized was I had a piece of history right in front of me, and I was holding on to it as its caretaker. And as we approach the 50th birthday of these shoes and of that poster, and really of Nike shoes in general, I think it's finally time for these shoes to find a new owner. And I will probably be auctioning them off this summer when the World Championships in track and field are going to be held in Eugene, which was right where these shoes were made by Coach Bowerman in his workshop under the stadium back in July of 1972. I later would go on to make 3 U.S. Olympic teams, 10 World Cross Country teams, be an American record holder, be a world champion in cross country. But my whole international career started back in Sacramento, California, in these shoes, and was captured by that poster back there. And it's a wonderful little piece of history, and now you know.